Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever it may be in the world for you today. You're tuned into Speed Gaming. My name is Uday Monistic. You are joining me for a week 2, a Link to the Past Randomizer League matchup. The very first of the week, actually. The first of the Ambrosia seeds. Today you have Major Mistakes, represented by Catobat, up against Reheated Leftovers, represented by dazedcloud. Taking a look at our setup here, I really like the file name that dazedcloud put together with the little tildes there. It's pretty nifty. But so Ambrosia, if you've never seen it, this is a standard mode seed. We will have a full escape sequence, but it's a little bit different than normal. We have an assured sword, and we also have a boots hint from the uncle at the very beginning, so we're going to pay close attention to what we see as the actual race starts to get an idea of where we're going to find that. Although it might not be that specific. But at least it's something, you know? I think most people really do love having their boots. So this will be interesting to see how this plays out. The other aspect of Ambrosia is that Ambrosia will always guarantee an item, not a dungeon item, but a regular item of some sort on every single boss, really changing the weighting of the dungeons and how you approach them. It looks like we're about to get started here. Catobat and dazedcloud ready to get the very first of this entire week started. And boots are in the Swamp Palace. Today we're going to find that out just seconds into the race. We of course have a first item here in Link's house. That'll be 10 arrows. We won't need those for presumably quite a while, as we do have a sword. Something to point out is that if you are assured a sword at the start, if you haven't seen one of these settings in a while, you will not actually be able to use the sword until you get to the uncle himself. So if you're looking to, slash through some bushes, you might accidentally face check them instead. So we'll get some pretty standard conventional escape movement here during the rain state, something you don't see very often in Randomizer, but certainly if you're a speedrunner of the game, you would. We get a regular bee in a bottle from the uncle, so that'll make our Kakariko routing a little bit more friendly. The very first killable enemies of the game cut to pieces while we get a heart piece, and both runners opting to pick up a little bit of magic. Potential time save later. It's frames, if anything, but mostly you just want that in case you need to use magic for something. Kind of some strange bush slashing movement, but we're getting into the castle no problems. And of course, if you're not used to playing a lot of standard, listen to that awesome rain sound. Isn't this game so ambient? Well, with that bee, they actually have some options if they want to kill some enemies. This would be more useful if we didn't already have a sword. With our boots hint that it is in swamp, that is some long-term planning that our runners will have to consider. We're getting some up-facing sword spins to knock the key guard closer to the door, make it a little more efficient. And both runners appear to remember that you can just hold diagonally to cross or past that blue guard. Well, one of the hallmarks of a great escape is approximately 6 minutes. Of course, that's a little different in Rando because we do have the possibility of getting a bomb, and that would extend the amount of time we spend here in the escape. Neither runner looking to charge a sword on the way through the door will have to do slashes or spins. A good blue keyguard from Catobat, and dazedcloud doing a slightly different method that gets the key a little closer to the door. Very nicely done. Traditionally, you wouldn't bother doing that because you would already have a boomerang available to you, but well, in that chest. But so good heads-up play by dazedcloud to save a few frames here. Now, I am seeing some discussion in chat about prize packs and why we're seeing extra enemy kills. One thing that you can remember is that all of the prize packs are vanilla in the sense of what's in the prize pack, but which enemies give you them is randomized. So I was immediately proven wrong about those 10 arrows in Link's house. Looks like we have a bow to work with here in the escape in Zelda's cell. It would be pretty strange to see somebody go towards the eastern area because of that, but that is on the table, pending some dark rooms if they wish. Not a bomb to be found anywhere here in the escape so far. 3.5 minutes into the race. Both runners maybe not too worried about that yet, but if one sees a bomb and a common enemy, that might be cause for concern. Something to remember about these prize packs is that they only have a 50% chance of incrementing or dropping their reward for most enemies in the game, with some exceptions. Catobat with the early one-room lead, approximately 5 seconds or so, easily turned around here just in the escape sequence alone. Lots of potential for RNG to mess with you. There we see Catobat giving up some of the time advantage to try and kill some extra guards. One thing about these guards is that blue guards, green guards, red guards, they actually aren't in the same prize pack for the most part. So it does make sense to try and kill different types of guards along their way. You may be wondering, I don't remember seeing them pick up a lamp. How are they seeing in the dark? And as it turns out, in standard modes, you are given a free light cone here in this part of the escape, as you are required to get through here either way. We're going to see those B that B get put to use by dazedcloud. Unfortunately, no drops. Opportunities for explosives coming down to the wire here, or the fuse perhaps, as it is not burning fast enough. But dazedcloud is going to find one off of a rat, which means that it's very likely that Catobat will find one as well, whether it's here or in the room with the actual explosive wall. Yep, Catobat manages to pick up the one bomb. Of course, could pick up more bombs if we're lucky in this next room, which would be convenient for Kakariko. But for the moment, the critical hurdle has been jumped over. 3 total chests to get our map, which means there's something in Sanctuary. And yeah, so we're still looking at one more item on our way out, but thankfully we won't miss anything, so there's no concerns or fears on this front. Lots of extra bombs here from Catobat, which is probably a smart heads-up play. dazedcloud did more of the farming in the actual sewer itself. I mean, hey, when you know that these rats are the bomb prize pack, kind of hard to turn them away. First out of the escape at 616 compared to 620 for Catobat. About a 4-second advantage for dazedcloud. Going to pick up a actual proto Sankart. A quarter of what you would normally find there, but all the same effect nonetheless. And that is your standard opening with both runners neck and neck. Have some decisions ahead of them. We don't have the boots yet, but knowing that we can find them at some point after we get to the Dark World, dazedcloud actually going to skip checking the Lumberjack for now, knowing that it'll be quite a while. Tier 1 tree pole is going to be vanilla. Going to actually no, that should be tier 2. We killed 4 enemies. Tier 2 tree pole will be green rupees, as the blue rupees are on the hoarder crab. More financial options here in the forest, as dazedcloud picking up 50. I did not catch that lumberjack ledge. I hope somebody in chat did. Just 10 more arrows for our bow, as Dazed continues to get bottle vendor money here with the 20 rupees in the drop. So both should have that walking into the village, should be in comfortable position for their money currently. Whether or not that holds true through the village and to the South Shore is another story. So for those of you strolling into the race after the escape sequence, this is an Ambrosia seed. Ambrosia is a standard mode A Link to the Past randomizer seed that also gives you an assured sword and a boots hint from the uncle, which we found out shows that the boots are in Swamp Palace today. The last most important thing to remember about Ambrosia is that every boss in every dungeon will have an item of some sort, so you may be able to exclude certain locations in dungeons by a different means of logic than normal. Days Cloud continuing forward through the Blinds Hut, or the hideout, I guess, picking up many more rupees and a couple of assorted, not so important safety items, which, aren't going to hurt. You have 4 hearts to work with. This is still going to be a pretty low percent exploration for now. So you're not really angry about any of these finds, but besides getting a bunch of bumps for Catobat, which is more preferable to him, certainly not much here. Moving on towards the well, some more rupees, something to hold us a little more safely with our armor, and then, of course, things to hold things with that glove. So Power Glove going to give us a little bit more convenient overworld and just general routing checks. That hammer for 100 rupees is about as good of a price as you could hope for. Days Cloud making no chicken clip attempt. Can't blame him. That is a very risky thing to be doing, even though most of the time it's no problem. But there are a couple more checks here. We do have the bottle for Sick Kid, and apparently a second bottle as well. So we have a couple of extra safety options to work with. Kind of looks like a more conservative, start for an NMG run almost. Our Sick Kid friend, not too productive for our logical chain here, but we're not going to leave any stones unturned, particularly not with that Power Glove. Going to continue on south from here. Days Cloud doesn't have an opportunity to scout the race game or simply jump into it. We'll be the first to do so. But before that, on the library ledge, we're going to find out those boots and swamp are not going to be important for us to grab the 20 rupees there. I have no reason to expect anybody to stop there unless somehow they're 20 rupees short for Zord at a bad time. Explosive results in the end of the race. Days Cloud going to save and quit to presumably head south. Check it out, chat. Your benevolent overlord, Rick, has provided you with the Ambrosia command. I expect you to be spamming that all week, and by spamming that, I mean anytime someone's got a question and a comm doesn't know what to say. This is an interesting divergence. Well, not divergence yet, but Days Cloud is actually going to head towards the eastern area, which is not necessarily the first thing you'd see from a lot of runners. It's still a valid play. There's 3 items here at Eastern Palace's Sahasrahla hut, as well as the rest of the dungeon that you could potentially complete, whether it's in sequence or not. I believe you're right, Chad. I think we did have all crystals in the light world, and Days Cloud burning a path through his logic, getting the lamp and the fire rod in Sahasrahla's hut. Really, really fiery result. And speaking of that, I believe that was a Bombos on Lake Hylia Island. Catobat taking the time to get the scout. Some sort of medallion at the minimum. So all of the fiery explosions going on here in this race. Ambrosia, roughly translated, I guess, to mean the food of the gods. Perhaps all of these items reflecting that. I'm also of the opinion that having an assured sword, an item on the boss, and having a boots location might be a factor in that naming scheme. Well, I was immediately proven wrong by Catobat, immediately heading towards the eastern area as well, so very rewarding decisions for both of these runners. And now they have the means to complete Eastern completely in logic, which really lends itself to being a solid follow-up play. Seeing as they were both only needing a lamp and there weren't that many places overworld left to check, I think this is probably a smart decision. Well, Eastern Palace is A first example for us of how this ambrosia stuff works. Ambrosia, of course, will put an item on Armos Knights, and when Armos Knights, I mean, I guess this is one of those dungeons where that setting really pays off, because you know that by the time you get to the last two items of the dungeon, you'll absolutely be able to tell whether or not you need to go to the big chest or not, or the big key chest. Folks, don't be alarmed. This is just a quick thing, tech side. We're good. These two are in Eastern Palace, I can assure you. I imagine they're doing some really awesome Stalfos tech. Probably Catobat right now, and then would have seen that a minute ago from dazedcloud. Probably moving on to the big chest. Oh, I'm so right. I'm so right. All right, bear with us. Don't mind our dust. dazedcloud is moving on towards the vanilla big key chest, which means that uh, we are either still missing an item that we don't think is on Armos itself, or dazedcloud may have forgotten about this part of Ambrosia. We'll see here in a moment. We'll also see from Catobat, maybe we'll see a menu, maybe not. Kind of unlikely, seeing as we won't need the bow switch to anything else anytime soon. All right, well, that's enough for dazedcloud to move all the way down to the Armos fight. We'll find out what that item is. Of course, that's not guaranteed to be a progressive item. It's just going to be something. So could be, $10, could be not $10, could be $20, could be, you know, silver arrows. Who knows? Holy mackerel! Look at all of these bombs. Well, so it turns out the rats and the popos all in the same actual bomb pack, but we get that Armos fight from dazedcloud here. Just the 20 rupees is a reward, but we did end up with a crystal, so that puts dazedcloud on the board, 16 and 16 into the seed. Catobat looking to be about half a minute behind, maybe a little more. All right, well, now that we have done Eastern Palace, we have a couple of choices available to us. We didn't find any major progression in there, as best as I can tell or remember, but the area was productive. dazedcloud going to head towards the South Shore, as we might expect traditionally. A little bit of a slip up here with the Armos fight, but Catobat is able to vanquish and get the 20 rupees, propelling this to 1-1 with the crystals. Yeah, about a minute behind. And that was half magic in the dam. Not that that would have necessarily have given us much, doing that before doing Eastern, but a really awesome item to find along the way. Well, that will take our runners in opposite directions, actually. Catobat, having picked up that shovel, will immediately go check to see what was behind it. All right, so that is a moon pearl and a third bottle for Days Cloud here in Mini Moldorm Cave. Interestingly enough, not going to head east with that, even though there is some potential for using some sequence breaking to get to the waterfall cave. So Days Cloud gonna head west. Gonna head to the hype cave. Ah, yes, because that is Dark World access. Alrighty, well, we get our mini Moldorm cave out of Catobat here, having a little bit of difficulty with the left one, but otherwise getting through no major issues. I see a hype cave in progress. It looks like it wasn't that great. I am having some issues with the way that I can see Days Cloud side on my screen, although it looks pretty good on the restream. So, folks, if you happen to see something important in there, please inform me. All bottles, nothing of value. However, we do still have items to work with. Days Cloud, despite not having everything that you'd like to have, like say the mirror, does have um, East Dark World access, and we'll end up checking the pyramid and potentially even Catfish or Palace of Darkness. And that is silvers on the pyramid. Interesting information. So we didn't necessarily need a bow to get there, but we've been seeing a lot of bow lock bows lately, and I've been real sensitive to that myself, looking out for those scenarios. Silver arrows real early on, though, does give us a very volatile weapon. Days Cloud will be able to accelerate a lot of boss fights, as well as kind of deal with some of the more difficult enemies of the Dark World that you normally struggle with a fighter sword, or at least have to spend more time killing. Now, the corollary to that is that you do have lag to worry about. If you miss an arrow with the silver arrows, it is painful. Getting a Dark World map check, we do have a pendant in Misery Mire, a pendant at Thieves Town, and I believe it was Palace of Darkness with a green pendant. So while we don't necessarily have to be here yet, we may find out that it ended up being pretty necessary. Although it's almost like Helmasaur gives you two items in an Ambrosia Seed. Well, we did find out, of course, that it is a bow-locked pendant Palace of Darkness, which we had the bow to begin with either way. That will not be a reason to deter us from continuing further, so Days Cloud, without the mirror, will have to do some kind of wonky routing through here. In the meantime, though, Catobat going a different route will head westward again, actually, as we saw the shovel check before. This will give us Stumpy over here, and then, of course, the dig game. Now, if this were to lead to a Titan's Mitts, this would be really productive. Or a mirror. A mirror's good, too. Alright, so that nets us another check immediately, but is also just plain convenient. The heart here, we will actually stop for. Catobat looking to try and pad some of the safety options here, as we did not have a lot of health to work with walking into that cave. Well, Days Cloud will continue to show us Palace of Darkness here from the roundabout way. Here in the right side, we'll end up with that big key, so dazedcloud does have an opportunity to clear a little more conveniently from here on out. May have to be a little bit smart about key usage. And interestingly enough, this is Ambrosia mode. Will end up heading straight to the boss, which you don't see all the time, but is definitely more common when you know there's an item there. Catobat digging for ages, it seems like, getting all kinds of refunds. We'll end up digging today. Something, hopefully? Alright, 10 arrows. Having completed that entire chain, Catobat has not a lot of obvious options in that region. However, Catobat can save and quit and head to the mountain, it looks like. That is in logic, and we do have the mirror because of that Stumpy check to go all the way to Hera. I like this reasoning. There's potential for doing a whole lot up here, particularly because you can go to the east side of Death Mountain with that hammer, and the mirror, of course. And then if we do find the Titan's Mitt somewhere up there, the entire mountain, except for like Hookshot Cave, we can do all of it except for Hookshot Cave and Turtle Rock. Pretty nice combo if that works out. Well, we will have some sort of item here. dazedcloud working on the 17 hammer smacks to the face, and then presumably a silver arrow, or maybe hammers. Silver's a little more consistent, though. Well, that's the green pendant. And our spectral rock, nothing of massive importance. Since I'm seeing questions about it in chat, and I'm sure you're seeing the command for it, !Ambrosia, just to give you a sense of why this mode really matters in terms of how this seed is run and how we kind of route it. You always know there's going to be an item on the boss. So you may route your dungeon differently, thinking, hey, I might be able to exclude a check that normally stinks to do, like Hera Basement, or maybe Eastern Palace's big key vanilla chest. So lots of reasons that you would route differently. The other thing that's nice is that assured sword means that you're not worrying about a weapon early in the race. Let alone the boots. We know that it's in Swamp Palace thanks to the uncle. For those of you who aren't sure exactly, ooh, there we go. we may have blacked out here for just a moment. Don't worry, we have the lamp in game, so we're solid for the runner's sake. We did see Tower of Hera as well as the finishing moments of Palace of Darkness. dazedcloud is diving back in, of course, to clear out the rest of it. We didn't see the back half of it. Alrighty, folks, I can properly see things now. I will be able to keep this in real time. So Catobat here is going to do a bomb jump with an interesting setup attempt, trying to take advantage of the fact that the game won't let Link release a sword spin while he's not standing on an actual solid surface. It'll actually force you back to the closest pixel to the ledge, making it a little easier to get those 2-pixel windows. We will see dazedcloud open up a bombable hole here, not going to attempt a hammer jump or a bomb jump of his own. As there's not really a lot of reason to. Doesn't need to save the key yet. We'll probably find 2 here in the basement. Having found 1 key, we'll probably find one in the Harmless Hellway, or I think is guaranteed one there. Time for a Moldorm fight for Catobat, making quick work of Hera. What is our guaranteed item on Moldorm today? It is just more explosions to follow his explosion. That is crystal number 2 for Catobat, taking a slight edge in the total crystal count. Whether or not Catobat needs to clear out anything else in Eastern Hera is, well, was up in the air for me, but certainly not for Catobat. We're out of there. All right, so we did find a Book of Medora, it looks like, in Palace of Darkness, which potentially is an item of value. We do not know yet whether or not it's that important to be illiterate here in Hyrule. But that could potentially give us tablets or the pedestal. Pedestal today looking like hmm, a reasonably possible opportunity. Can't have it for maybe like an ice rod. An ice rod or a required medallion for Turtle Rock. Those are a couple of things that could potentially be locked there. Maybe even flippers? There's our Titan's Mints, though. Catobat taking the long haul, a slow gander, a stroll, if you will, over to the Spiral Cave to get the heavy lift upgrade, which we definitely wanted to see here in the mountains somewhere. Further divergence now that we have the fire rod from the eastern area. dazedcloud looking to try and burn down the competition over here in Skull Woods. Does have a clear path to the Mothula fight, which is considerably more valuable in an Ambrosia seed, seeing as there's not that many items in the dungeon, and one of them has to be on the boss. A quick Kane find here in Catobat. Can he continue to get the other 5 up top? Looks like he will be, of course. No reason to leave one stone turned or left behind unturned. Catobat will have a little bit of shakiness with these mini Moldorms, but does have a boomerang to use to hit the switch while we see dazedcloud checking the one location on the way to the boss, hoping to try and find the second item immediately. That didn't look too productive to me over in the Paradox Cave, but we got the Cane of Samaria. That's enough. I would still consider that worth maybe quite a while before we end up needing to use it. Unless Catobat decides to pop into Turtle Rock at some point. We could still find another medallion that we need, and if we found the one we needed for Turtle Rock in this process, that would be on the table. Super Bunny Cave, the last potential opportunity for getting access to it. We will find a piece of heart and another piece of heart, so we will almost certainly not be heading that direction now, but we will probably see Catobat scout that out in the process. In the meantime, dazedcloud here at the back of Skull Woods, going to stop to pick up an extra key as we might not be able to get that second item easily, and we only have the one on the boss that we know of for sure yet. That looked to be an ether to me. This is a potentially scary fight for dazedcloud. This is a lot of magic to work with, and half magic at that for the fire rod, but that's fighter sword afterwards, and only 6 hearts to spare. Miraculously taking almost no damage throughout this fight, it seems like. All in all, though, Mothula being quite the jerk, really just wedging himself in between the spikes, making it as difficult as possible for dazedcloud to get damage here. An excellent poke to finish it off. dazedcloud will emerge relatively unscathed to get his flippers. A bit of a fringe check here. Catobat putting on his cape to check the spike cave. Getting some bombs here, but that is one loose end tied away. Now, this is an interesting scenario for Days Cloud. I mean, we did find something of value. We will absolutely need those flippers in order to finish the seed. But the one remaining item is who knows where here in Skullwoods. Days Cloud likely to get juked several times trying to find it, and without that mirror, this is a really painful check to make. Thankfully, we can Death Warp. So with the crystal count tied, Catobat has some options available. Pretty nice inventory to work with, and a really friendly traversal really available to him. We'll end up heading to Skull Woods. We'll see if Catobat spends any time in the front half before Days Cloud, as finding the first item would actually save a ton of time in this dungeon if you were to find it on the way to Mothula. Though I don't fault anybody for going straight to the boss. That really usually makes the most sense in a 2-item dungeon in Ambrosia. Eluding us even further, Days Cloud going to try to exhaust the key logic as best as possible. We're seeing Catobat take the exact same route that Days Cloud did. There's our full heart container. Days Cloud has cleared out all of Skull Woods of value. We'll be noping the heck out of there post haste. Doesn't have the cape actually. So we may or may not actually see the bumper ledge. In fact, it's probably a less appealing check to make in this scenario because you're not going to continue east. So this may be just to poke your head in and see what it is from Days Cloud, and then head back towards the village. Looks like Catobat's going to get the maximum extent out of the magic meter here, going to use Fire Rod on the Gibdos to try and make this a little bit quicker. And then a little bit of Lamp to save some extra fuel along the way. This does make a lot of sense if you want to use this on the fight. Fighter Sword, not exactly a familiar or a friendly fight for everybody. And even then, you just kind of insurance. I mean, even if you feel good about that fight. Catobat working on the same Fire Rod fight, but considerably better RNG to start the fight. Actually got quite a few good shots off right away. But some slight misses here are going to be potentially perilous. Popping out the hammer. Popping off, actually, with the hammer. Catobat really smacking away at things. And we'll get the flippers as a reward, so that is potentially everything we'll see from Catobat. Has an opportunity to mirror out of here. Does not have the book to check the pedestal if you wish to. So maybe a more efficient clear of Skullwoods, I imagine. Yeah, so immediate gains for Catobat having that mirror. That was a much friendlier escape from that single check. We do see Days Cloud doing a save warp, or not save warp, a death warp to leave Thievestown after the first front four. We know that it's a pendant, so this does make a lot of sense, but there are a lot of folks out there who wouldn't want to skip the remaining stuff in the back. However, the choice to not check the rest of Village of Outcasts first probably lends itself to this being the plan the entire time. Well, nearly 40 minutes into the race, and despite having access to it for a little bit, Catobat still hasn't gone over to Swamp Palace for those boots, perhaps thinking that the value in simply doing all of this in one fell swoop a little more important. dazedcloud going to continue the south checks here, and we'll find the mirror shortly, and actually has a natural reason to be going right into swamp after this. So I would not be as surprised at all to see dazedcloud head there right away. Seeing the usual discussion in chat, folks talking about the one very extremely rare location in this game that normally houses our Master Sword, the pedestal. It's not entirely dead yet. There are actually a few things that could be there. The Ether Medallion, if it's not required for Misery Mire, could potentially be there. You could actually have the Ice Rod there. Beyond that, oh gosh, Thieves Town, Misery Mire. You could even have a hook shot there. Lots of inconvenient possibilities. But without a book to check it, Catobat's not going to have an opportunity to go that way, and dazedcloud will not be over in that direction without a mirror anytime soon. Not unless we end up heading back to the light world. That mirror being picked up, though, dazedcloud has some choices, knows that there's a shovel in the inventory. We'll end up checking this immediately. Yeah, so for those you memers out there who are always hoping that the pedestal makes things miserable for our runners, it's not counted out just yet, but maybe don't start spinning around the rally towels just yet. Might take a little bit before we get to that point. So an interesting divergence of choices here. Catobat will actually go to the back of the dungeon, of course, knowing that Blind has an item, and already having the extra small key and the hammer needed to check it. This is a pretty safe decision, even if it's potentially costly in time. I think my biggest concern here is that there was the opportunity to go grab those boots from Swamp if they're in the front. Now here's the problem though, is even though we got a Swamp Boots hint, we don't know where in Swamp, and that very well could be hookshot locked. So maybe that's part of why Catobat's not that excited to head there yet. We will, however, get our first tablet check. dazedcloud not having the requisite sword to actually gather the item will save the animation time from not grabbing those rubies in the grand scheme of things. Inferior boomerangs aside, Catobat not finding a whole lot here in the back. dazedcloud checking the Agena cave that we never got to see. 5 rupees for our troubles. Looks like that sphere is toast. This would be a natural chain to Desert Palace, and it looks like dazedcloud is heading in that direction. So we don't have those boots, but we will know that something in Swamp, our boots, will be the one potential missing link here if there is a requisite item on the torch. Holy cow! Catobat finding the flute, which is in of itself not crazy important just yet, but that is required for no, never mind. I thought that was Mr. Meyer as a crystal. So we may or may not actually end up needing that flute, but that is actually really good traversal to have, because this will be pretty much fast access to the Dark World all over the place. I'm not exactly sure how I feel about that flute entirely. With the mirror, that is a hefty overworld advantage for Catobat, but it's kind of late in the seed to get it. So I don't know if that's going to really translate to much. An interesting part of that equation being mentioned in chat, as we see the blind fight from Catobat, that is a method of getting in a desert for Catobat, logically speaking. So whether we find something important on Ether Tablet might end up being a factor. Well, pendant down for Catobat, both of our runners have completed one, only getting 10 bombs for the trouble, which is not what Catobat wanted to see. Um, if that book ends up leading dazedcloud on a long trek to check an Ether Tablet for nothing, then this may have made some sense for Catobat, but otherwise this seems like a time sink. Well, we've played the tune, the avian is flying. Catobat wasting no time, though, here in the light world. We'll head immediately back to Village of Outcasts. Still checks to make. And then potentially a swamp play on the table, whether or not he's willing to endanger being hookshot boxed. I have been passing over, though, dazedcloud, his very quick approach to Lamolus here. Already in the Lamolus fight with Silver Arrows, unfortunately a little bit early, probably a couple frames early on the first worm, but otherwise a serviceable fight. And this will once again even the score for the crystals 3-3 between these two. This is, of course, a 7-7 defeat Ganon Seed standard mode. I say that because it's an Ambrosia preset. For those of you tuning in late to the race, Ambrosia means that we will have an item on every single boss. And on top of that, you start with a sword, and you get a boots hint from the uncle, which we found out today is somewhere in Swamp Palace. So dazedcloud, having finished Desert Palace, has some options open. We'll actually look to be taking the first trip up to the mountain, I believe. I think, at least. This side of the trees kind of confused me. We'll be heading up to the Lumberjack check? I think dazedcloud telekinetically knows that I'm trying to describe what's going on here and is juking me on purpose. Oh wow, Catobat finding an ice rod here on the smiths, which is traditionally a very annoying thing to find, whether you want it or not. It's either usually in the last place you want to look, or you just find it when you definitely don't need it. Doing the smith chain here allows Catobat to make a little bit more efficient decisions when it comes to Turtle Rock later. Of course, not having that book, Catobat not looking to preserve a portal or anything here for the purple chest check-in. We'll get the 20 rupees and save a little bit of time over dazedcloud for having taken the time to go over to check Bombos. This will be our first Gallivant, so to speak, into the Mire area. Catobat will have Mire Shed and be able to scout out the medallion requirement for Mire, which we may or may not need. Getting hassled a little bit by the Hoff of the bird. We'll actually jump in there to take shelter, but we have Bombos as the required medallion for Mire, which I believe we saw somewhere, but we got a hook shot in the Mire Shed, so Catobat will pull a little further ahead with that flute, now confirmed to be required. So time will tell how long it takes for dazedcloud to make his way back to the Village of Outcasts, and specifically Thieves Town. Not a place that you'd be likely to go back to quickly unless you absolutely had to. However, the hookshot being behind that flute is actually a bit of a boon, as dazedcloud will run out of options for what to check before too much longer. And both of our tablets today just giving us change, a little bit of cash, nothing that we really need at 1,000 plus each. So for those of you out there keeping score, really hoping and praying that, it's just the worst case scenario that they have to complete every single pendant dungeon for that pedestal. The only way that's even possible at this point is if it's ether on that pedestal to block Turtle Rock. Nothing else would be required. Maybe a sword? I mean, that's feasible. It's not likely. Swamp Palace time for Catobat, though, and knowing that we really only need the Ether Medallion and the boots somewhere in here, I think this will probably be a full clear until we find both of those items, but you could potentially skip some stuff in here if you know that you're going to have something on Argus anyway. While our runners are crossing over some previously seen territory and Catobat kind of just barely getting into Swamp, this is a good time to remind you folks that Speed Gaming actually has multiple language broadcasts. And today, this race is actually being covered on the German Restream channel, Speed Gaming Deutsch. If you'd like to, if you speak that language and prefer to hear commentary in that, or you're just getting tired of my puns, go give them a check. Go check them out. They do Spanish-speaking, Portuguese, French restreams, all kinds of fun stuff. And we always need more multilingual casters out there. So feel free to get in touch on the Speed Gaming Discord if you're looking to find more information on that. All right. Well, our first check of Swamp Palace, nothing super important just yet. Catobat, of course, has no choice but to really clear out everything until we find those boots, because you would just not give up that advantage to an opponent for no reason. dazedcloud, unfortunately, on the path to go, I don't know, head north to check the floating island, but the Dead Rock just had different plans. We're heading to Spiral Cave, which is actually exactly what he needed to get the Titan's Mitts. So Catobat, knowing that it's going to take a lot of time to check everything and has the opportunity to potentially get what he's looking for here in the back half, will do kind of the more conventional play that we've seen in the most recent meta, which is to go simply straight back to Argus, take the time sink that is involved, like 10 to 15 seconds or something like that, to jump back into the dungeon afterwards if you don't end up finding what you need. When it's 2 items away from go mode, it's kind of hard not to go this route. Finding a map and a piece of heart, not exactly what we're hoping for. But Catobat knows there's something on Argus, so we'll absolutely have to be going all the way to the boss regardless, if we're not for the crystal already. The big key in one of the less friendly places of the dungeon, you really don't want to find it there, because the temptation to walk back to the big chest is just intense. And if you're already committing to going back into the dungeon, it's very easy to sink some extra time doing that. Well, dazedcloud exhausting all of the Death Mountain checks available. Having found that Titan's Mitts has a cornucopia of choices available to him. We'll see what ends up happening next for dazedcloud, but we have a not-so-fun fight here for Catobat, opting for Fire Sword spins to try and get 2 of them per hookshot cycle, which is possible, but very easy to drop them. Looking to probably see about a 4 or 5 phase Argus fight if this ends up being unmanageable in the last feud, but currently on pace for 3, actually. I may or may not have jinxed that. But Catobat had a weird position for the last puff, so it'll be a 4 cycle, but certainly good enough in my book. I would struggle to get faster than that. Catobat opting for the Fire Rod strats would take 4 total Fire Rods to vanquish the boss, getting 3 there, looking for the 4th one, but the bounces are kind of weird, and we'll pull it off on the left side of the room. Looks like dazedcloud here going to... Oh, wow, that was the ether! Technically go mode, as far as we know. Now, Catobat very likely to try and grab the boots, but the thing is like, you're this far into the seed, you only need desert and ice, well, and turtle rock. I think you probably go back and get them. And yes, thanks for keeping me in check, chat. Of course, we do still need another sword, Master Sword at minimum, to defeat Ganon. So while it's fairly likely that we find it, it's also not a guarantee either. So pointy things mode, engaged for Catobat. We'll be checking the big chest, probably going to exhaust all of the left side at this point. Really no other choice if you want those boots. dazedcloud, in the meantime, having finished up Tower of Hera extraordinarily fast, and all of the Death Mountain checks available, will not have a flute yet until we head back to Thieves Town, but we'll find that Bombos there on Lake Hylia Island, which I don't believe we were able to check before. Or at least didn't check before, excuse me. Now, this might be a very poor time for dazedcloud to see that, as that may incentivize dazedcloud to pick that up before he finds the flute. If he finds the flute first, no big deal. You know, might end up checking Mire area and finding that hook shot, never bother with Mire. But this could be a chain of, you know, checks that might lead him astray. And speaking of going astray, dazedcloud heading towards Ice Palace area, but it looks like we're actually gonna take the portal north to... I'm actually bewildered. Maybe we didn't check Ice Rod Cave before? Alright, that is the scenario at hand here. While we see Catobat looking to finally almost get the boots, finding a red item, not quite the one we wanted. Boots over in the vanilla big key chest. The run can now begin. The swamp monster being vanquished, Catobat has pretty straightforward completion ahead. Depending on how hard he wants to search for this sword, may even be able to go mode pretty much Ice Palace and Turtle Rock for what little time save Turtle Rock will give. Well, Catobat, breaking hearts, walking away from that full container, will be heading to do the kind of the more convenient Desert Palace routing. You love to have the mirror in this situation. You love to come from the left side of the dungeon, something that dazedcloud did not have access to on his run-through. So this is, for all intents and purposes, the go mode version of Desert. As dazedcloud begins the campaign into Ice Palace, which will likely be a full clear, want to take a moment to shout out my tracker today. Ryu X, thank you for keeping us on the up and up through minor technical difficulties. That's kind of hard to deal with, trying to keep track of everything. And we really appreciate, being consistent because of that. And of course, to the chat for helping us get, right as rain when things were a little rough water, so to speak. So we'll get to see Catobat head towards Lammolas here as dazedcloud tries to figure out what in the world do you do with a fighter sword and pengators. Looking like silvers is the antidote. dazedcloud getting a piece of heart from the first chest. A lot of time spent and lag frames elapsed. As dazedcloud will continue further into the dungeon. Maybe this is one of those scenarios where he just go modes it because, I can't fathom someone doing it, honestly, but that's kind of what we need to see. Get to see a really nice Stalfos Night kill from dazedcloud, kind of standard fare usually, but easy to mess up. So good to see that the execution in the dungeon's working well despite the frustrating scenario for dazedcloud. We're going to see an alternative fight from Catobat, looking for fire rod strats to save a menu, unfortunately losing a cycle out of it, but we'll be able to do it in 2, which is similar but not quite as fast as dazedcloud's fight. Another crystal down for Catobat, down to the last 2. dazedcloud, all things considered, still in the fight, but not finding that flute in Thieves Town is looking like a very painful choice. Well, if you got rupees burning a hole in your pocket, you may as well have blue potions there instead. Catobat looking to shed the bees in exchange for blues, which I think is alliterative enough for SG main, right? And now we get to see Catobat's Ice Palace, which, interestingly enough, if dazedcloud really does have to full clear without Hookshot trying to do all these bomb jumps, we may actually see a Cold Stare fight from Catobat first, by simple virtue of how difficult it is to traverse this dungeon without it. To answer a question in chat about Ambrosia Uncle hints for the boots, we will say basically the overall region of the world. So light world, dark world, if it's in a certain specific type of location that's like considered unique, they might differentiate. So like a dungeon, for example, but oftentimes you're not really sure exactly where you're going to find it. You just know the region of the world. All the way up to the vanilla big key for dazedcloud, a full completion if you ever seen one. Really impressed though by the bomb jump knowledge. That last bomb jump that we saw across the hookshot gap, arguably one of the hardest bomb jumps in the game. Maybe Spectacle Rock is up there with it, depending on how you feel about the execution on that one. But with all the enemies in that room, that's a frustrating and time invested bomb jump to do. So props to dazedcloud for really hammering through this. For those of you tuning in a little bit late to the race, who haven't seen the last hour of this action, for the most part, this has just been diverging routes of similar choices, but 1 or 2 important checks that we haven't seen. For dazedcloud's situation, it is a flute in the back of, well, actually in the maiden cell of Thieves Town. That Catobat got on the first time through his pendant dungeon. We saw dazedcloud dip out after the front 4. And that flute led to Misery Mire area, which of course led to our hookshot in the Mire Shed. So Catobat having the opportunity to pick up the Ambrosia hint boots in Swamp Palace already dazedcloud looking to try to find that hookshot anywhere else in the world. It looks like can't fault them for it, but it's about as bad as that could have turned out. I am really impressed with dazedcloud, though, keeping up in crystal count and beating my prediction that that Catobat would be the first one into Cold Stare. dazedcloud will actually be the first one into Cold Stare, and will take a momentary tie here in the crystal count. By most measurements, though, this is about a 1 dungeon advantage for Catobat. Getting to see half magic put to use, not having a ton to work with. Didn't have access to a bombos instead, as that was on Lake Hylia Island, which you could get to, but wasn't going to do that until we needed to do Mire for sure. Speaking of which, dazedcloud does not know that it's required for Mire if you want to go into Mire, but we know, thanks to Catobat, that we won't even need to be there in the first place. Alright, well, Cold Stare has some kind of item on it. Oh, that's a Master Sword! That is go mode for Catobat as soon as he finishes this fight, so Ambrosia paying off. The guaranteed item plus the boots hint. This seems to be the mode better suited for Catobat overall today. Barely an hour and 5 minutes with just a single crystal remaining. Catobat catapulting into the lead here. Well, that does leave Catobat with a couple of considerations. Currently a silverless fight. We know that those silvers are actually on the pyramid ledge, which, for valid reasons, Catobat hasn't been to yet, but might not even see that, even if you go all the way to the Ganon fight. Could be very easily forgotten at the very end of the seed. Oh, this might be the move. Catobat heading back towards the Village of Outcasts, presumably to go to Thieves Town. We did have a cape picked up at one point, so, but I believe dazedcloud did actually check the bumper ledge, so doesn't really have a reason to be going specifically there. Although there is some Northern Dark World and Light World checks that we could try and get here. Oh, this seems like indecision. Daze, come on, you can do it. And the most important thing to happen just got walked right past, unfortunately. Although you can't fault dazedcloud for this. I mean, that's not something you want to revisit until you've really exhausted other opportunities, but... oh, actually, I believe we needed something along... Yeah, we're going to get the Ice Rod, actually, thanks to this. So, dazedcloud's still making a good choice. We will have to get this from the Smith Chain. I'm really hoping and praying for the sake of this race, though, that this leads straight into Thieves Town. Alright, Total Rock on the menu. Looking to pretty much just get a good key layout. This is the best case scenario for Catobat, is we find the big key and all required keys along the path and get to skip a couple of checks. We know that there's an item on the boss. It's not going to be the Tempered Sword. We find that in the laser chest very early on. This is actually really great news for Catobat, as the whole silverless fight thing becomes a lot less important to consider, as that's a way more friendly fight. dazedcloud here is going to actually do a fake powder. We saw that setup by dropping all the magic on the way to getting the Ice Rod, which is kind of funny because he used the Fire Rod to get the Ice Rod, or used the Fire Rod right before the Ice Rod to get the fake powder item. If I recall correctly, I don't think we saw this from Catobat, but it shouldn't be anything super important. Still not entirely sure why this glitch works. To the best of my knowledge that I've heard, the game was programmed by two people who are very angry at each other and don't agree on anything. So I'm assuming something with a buggy item slot and a prompt to use or refresh magic counts was probably at fault here. Catobat not doing the thing that we all want to do, which is slash at an enemy the second time through, which is more often than not just going to get you knocked off a platform. Does have the chomps ahead. Even with red mail, this can be kind of a sketchy place to be. Will bait out the attack and then get the item, which happens to be the big key. So provided we can find another small key in a convenient spot, we could actually probably skip the lava chest. I don't know. This is always kind of a weird thing to read. Big news for dazedcloud, though. This will be the check that we needed to get the flute. I don't see dazedcloud likely finishing the dungeon. I don't think you would once you get that flute. But knowing that it has to be an item, we might just see that anyway, which would be worse for him. Being that this is basically an entire dungeon advantage for Catobat, the whole silverless question, very unlikely to be a factor here. It would take some real serious mistakes in order to actually give dazedcloud any kind of opportunity to catch back up here, despite dazedcloud finding the correct logical progression. Had this been a single dip the first time around, this would probably be a neck-and-neck race right now. Well, Catobat moving on towards the laser bridge section of the dungeon, and of course Trinex himself will be the last crystal required to finish the game. Now, the exciting part about this for Catobat and his team, Major Mistakes, is this will actually, assuming nothing changes, this is an opportunity for the first win of the team for the league here in Week 2. dazedcloud's reheated leftovers have actually gone 2-0 so far, so this has some potential to shake up some of the conference. Now, I think our tracker today, Seiryu X, may have been counting the keys a little better than I was. I believe this was claimed to have been a God TR, which means that the key logic allowed us to skip the maximum number of things. Seeing as we have one key remaining going towards the laser bridge, we will not need to check that whatsoever. Head straight to the boss. So this is pretty convenient item layout. This is kind of where you want to be. Catobat having the tempered sword. I mean, I think most runners in this league will likely have at least practiced their tempered silverless. And even if it were an issue, Catobat's first check that you would do immediately after would be the silvers. Getting a nearly last frame menu there, mid-slash, while it was doing damage to the head, avoiding the everybody's favorite trope in boss fights in Zelda games. Only cool guys, look at explosions, because you're not allowed to menu during one. We actually will get the blind fight for dazedcloud here, which represents a potential time savings that could have been had that didn't get had. But can't fault them. Still looking for that hook shot. Has every reason to continue checking. Guaranteed item on Trinex today, not even a frame saver. That quarter heart will not actually refill health. So, folks, you may see the command already launched in chat. Guess where you think you're going to find the big key in Ganon's Tower, or at least Catobat will find it. There are 22 total locations. Normally, this is the part where I lean on a co-com to tell me where they think their funny location is. I'm guessing chest number 1. I want to see a record-breaking seed. This isn't a record-breaking seed, but I want to see a really fast Ambrosia seed here today. But get your guesses in. I probably should do that before it gets cut off. Whether or not you're the first one to guess right, if you do, you still get points on the leaderboard, so it's fun. Time-honored tradition here to Link to the Past Randomizer. As we look to cut that off. dazedcloud, having picked up the flute, is actually about to go check the pedestal, it looks like. So this is that one scenario where, as we talked about early in the race, it could have been hookshot. It will not be today, but this will be a kind of telling moment for dazedcloud, I think. Two checks in, we have a small key at our disposal, so Catobat continuing full right, it looks like. Three bombs and no reaction from dazedcloud. More composure than I would personally have in this scenario. That Thieves Town play just feels wrong. Once you find that flute, you just know. So dazedcloud going to find the hook shot here almost immediately, and we'll know exactly how this transpired. So that'll be go mode for dazedcloud. Unfortunately, 2 dungeons remaining. Four checks, 5 checks, another key, and 6 will be the big one. The big key. Not quite as fast as I was hoping for, but certainly quick. Catobat will take the time to grab another small key on the way up, and we'll launch into the gauntlet here shortly, an hour and 15 minutes in. Oh, and yes, thank you, chat, for the correction. Ether, the one thing that he does still need, dazedcloud, will be on Argus, so not exactly go mode, but will be in the progress. Well, hey, big congratulations to that the folks in chat who guessed 6. Big shout outs to Peekle. Nice job. You hit the RNG god thing. Enjoy your points. Unfortunately, GT Big Key Game does not actually factor into fantasy scores, so if you have a team out there, didn't help you, but congratulations. Alrighty, Catobat has a good equipment set to work with here in the gauntlet. As he passes through Ganon Ball Z, one of my favorite rooms in the entire game, I guess, honestly, for its naming conventions. We in the Link to the Past community do not have awesome room names. There's only like a handful that are actually good. And I wouldn't even call that one that great, but you'll see here in a moment as we have the 5 gauntlet rooms creatively named Gauntlet 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Maybe that's an aspect we can work on as a community. First few gauntlet rooms going pretty well overall. You kind of hope for these Zazaks to move in a convenient way. This particular room with the ice floor and the conveyors, kind of a challenging one. A great use of the Splash and Scylla for Catobat to ensure that Stalfos goes down. Not going to bother with any kind of menu change, as we do have half magic and that fire rod already equipped. Some unfortunate collision with one of the rock sprites will cause a second cycle here for Catobat, but with a spin and fire rod shot, actually cleaned it up pretty well. Seeing some questions in the chat about the actual time save for silver arrows. The way you want to look at it is it depends on how fast somebody can do their, swordless spins, or not swordless spins, silverless spins. In theory, 1 torch cycle can get you 3, so you could potentially do it in 4 total cycles. I mean, you have a little bit of flexibility if you take advantage of 1 or 2 free spins at the beginning of that cycle, but silvers can potentially do it in 2 total cycles. So, I mean, it could potentially save a lot of time for somebody who isn't comfortable with the fight. It could save almost nothing for somebody who is like top tier, really knows how to handle every phase of that fight. And a big shout outs to folks rightly pointing out that, it matters more when you have less swords. For how much longer it takes to do silverless. We are at the top of the tower. Catobat here, really not stopping for much, not slowing down either. We didn't have a powder to work with, so really no ability to grab extra health here, but we will get a full magic refill. No more keys remaining, no more keys to spend. Ahead of us, Catobat has a slash and a spin, hopefully, for Moldorm 2 here, and that is all that separates him from the final two bosses of the game. He was hoping for silvers in that last chest. We'll get an extra heart container to work with. Not necessary, but having 10 hearts going into Ganon, not a bad thing either, even with red now. I'm gonna request the chat chills out on the food talk. I am so hungry right now. Although, honestly, if you need somebody to be on mic to shill for a fast food company, you got me. Could totally go for some chicken nuggets right now. Catobat looking to try and tear down the breading on this boss. Looking for some good setups here. These spins are probably the hardest part about this because all of the spin setups that he had there were not conducive to actually getting 2s or 3s. Slashes would have worked, but would have been extremely difficult to do. Well, either way, despite the number of cycles 4 in, Catobat will be moving on to Ganon shortly here, and unless he really wants those silvers, we'll be doing it silverless. dazedcloud having remembered, of course, this is Ambrosia. We'll be going after the Argus fight first. Almost too bad that we didn't get the boots first. That would have been a much more convenient fight. Getting to see a good setup here for the 1+1 cycle. Catobat, unfortunately, having some weirdness with the slash there. Missed one of the 12 total slashes, or the value of 12 slashes that we needed there. So we'll actually have a bad setup for the second phase to be a 1 cycle as well. With Cape, though, that is possible to do, so lots of magic to spare. We'll absolutely get the 2+1 cycle overall. Handled pretty well, all things considering, for how awkward it is sometimes to get that first cycle on the first phase. Looking smooth. Just needs 4 total slashes here in phase 3. Provided, of course, Ganon stops being a coward. What are you afraid of, Ganon? That's not even like I got silvers. And it looked like we got actually a tempered slash there, which there's a 2-frame window where you can actually do just a slash instead of a spin. Really, it just matters that you have the hurt box active on the sword at the right time. Not switching to lamp just yet. Okay, there we go. Catobat looking to try and get Ganon in a good position to get a triple for each single light of the torch. The important thing is that you activate the lamp, or not the lamp, the lantern here in the bottom left corner before he reaches his destination on the warp. That way you have time to position yourself and get the sword spin at the same time. Alright, just a few more spins here for Catobat to secure the first win of the week. And the first win for the team. Major mistakes, not living up to the name in this race. Really everything that could have gone well did. Catobat putting on a clinic for all of us. Get your GGs in, folks. In chat, folks. Get your GGs in chat, folks. Catobat will finish with an official SRL time of 1 hour, 22 minutes, and 51 seconds. GG. We will attempt to see if Catobat is interested in an interview. Of course, you do have the Speed Gaming Deutsch restream going on at the same time, so I don't know if Catobat intends to interview there first. So we'll find that out here in a moment. But in the meantime, dazedcloud, heading into Turtle Rock, has the one remaining dungeon before GT for the end of the race here. By the looks of things, dazedcloud may be seeing that dot done, not really enjoying that moment too well. Will deplete all bombs, and I'm assuming this is probably the end of the race here. Ah, yes, we have dazedcloud in chat. I'm assuming that is following a forfeit, but a good sport nonetheless, going to put on an entertaining moment here for the crowd. Looks like, yes, we have an official forfeit in SRL, so that is a victory today for Catobat and a first win for the team. dazedcloud taking the first loss for Reheated Leftovers. We'll see if we can get these two in here for an interview. And we are joined by Catobat. GG, congratulations on your exceptionally fast seed.
GG, thank you.
Walk us through this. How are you feeling throughout this this race? I mean, obviously you read the logic pretty well, but I mean, take us a little bit through your thought process here.
I was feeling pretty good. I think I routed this pretty well. I'm not used to my routing paying off this much in a seed. Like, as soon as I entered the Dark World, I found the mirror immediately. I'm curious when Dazed found that. There are so many options to route your early Dark World.
It turns out you actually just asked him, as we are joined by dazedcloud as well. GG.
I did that completely wrong.
GG.
GG there, Catobat. You kicked my butt there. Woof. Ouch. But yeah, GG's there.
Thank you. Yeah, I was feeling pretty well. The mirror, I think the mids were on Death Mountain. Yeah, my routing really paid off. I guess there was also a lot of luck involved, but yeah, it went really well. I was worried about the sword near the end. Like, I found Ether pretty much on my way, and I was still at Fighter Sword. But then all of a sudden, 2 swords in a row. So yeah, I was feeling a lot of pressure near the end, because I was definitely feeling ahead. But yeah, it turned out well in the end.
Well, so a lot of the stuff that we saw in this race was pretty similar between the two of you, in regards to, you know, how you chose to route the seed early on and kind of later as well. I think the biggest divergence that we saw was basically that mirror right away in Dark World Access. You know, Catobat went west, dazedcloud went north. Beyond that, I think that was really the one telling difference here for how this is routed. That did lead Catobat to head up to the mountain earlier, to go to Hera to get Titan's Mitts. But otherwise, the two of you pretty much retraced each other's steps throughout this entire thing. So honestly, I mean, I wouldn't feel too rough about this dazedcloud. I mean, that is one fairly unlikely check that pretty much would have had you guys neck and neck this entire thing.
I mean, I don't feel really that bad about it. It was kind of one of those things where it's like, oh, the seed gave me everything for a green pendant pod.
And we know how that goes, right?
Yeah, or I can go do the pendant thieves and kind of get Skull Woods at the time, and I'm kind of going to myself, I'm gonna go to pod. Like, I didn't have a good feeling either way about it, and like while I'm walking around in pod, I'm just thinking to myself, I better pull something big out of here, or else this is definitely the wrong play. So the moment that I walked out with a book and a bug net, it was just kind of like, I think I might have done a bad here. And yeah, he just, I mean, anytime that I don't even get into my 7th dungeon before someone else .duns, I mean, he crushed. So all GG's to Catobat there.
Well, I did want to ask you guys about, Ambrosia. You are the first two to run this week for the league itself. And it looked like both of you did remember pretty well that there were boss items. Were there any moments for either of you, I guess, that really felt like, hey, did I actually remember that? Like, I mean, did you have any moments where you almost forgot that was a factor?
Yes, definitely. In Hera, I think I did the bomb jump for absolutely no reason.
I mean, I've been just crushing ambrosia seeds lately, like just one after another, after another, after another, after another. So for me, it's just kind of like at this point, I'm like in my head, the moment I walk into a dungeon and I pick up a first item, I'm just like, okay, just remember there's an item on the boss. Don't waste time going on that way, But what are you gonna do,
All right, and then I definitely wanted to ask the two of you about the boots hint, because this was a really interesting boots hint today. The components for it, both of you had what it took to get into Swamp Palace without hookshot. Neither of you took the bait, and as it turns out, you actually would have been able to get it anyway. Wanted to get some thoughts from you guys. Catobat, I saw you delayed it for quite a while as well. What was going through your head when you found that mirror? Did you consider jumping in?
I was definitely considering it. I'm still not a fan of doing Swamp without hookshot, so I was still doing some check. I think that was when I did Thief's Stone. I only wanted to do the 4 initially, but there were no items there, so I decided to clear it. The flute opened up the Maya area and some other Overwatch check. I was considering do Desert and see if that's boots, but then I got the hookshot and immediately went to Swamp. I was still not sure if it's worth going for the boots, because I didn't know which dungeons would be boots though. But I think the time it takes to get the boots compensates by the speed boost that the boots give you for the rest of the seed, and it's also safer just in case they are needed.
Yeah, and there was still for both of you quite a while left once you had acquired those items. I mean, it kind of made sense. I agreed with both of your choices to go back to get them. Well, so we do have a potential interview for both of you over on. Well, actually, I don't know, dazedcloud, if you speak.
I do not speak German. That's all Catobat over there.
I think for the sake of the commentators over there and not having them just sit here in front of a screen with nothing, Catobat, I probably should excuse you to go do that interview real quick. But any other closing thoughts you wanted to share with the SG audience on this?
Well, I would just like to thank you for commentating and thank the viewers for watching.
Very, very astutely said. And folks, if you haven't had a chance to follow these two runners, there's a link in chat currently. Catobat and dazedcloud putting on a really awesome show for us. A great way to feature off this new game mode, not new game mode, but this week's game mode, Ambrosia, the fruit of the gods, so to speak, as Ambrosia is apparently directly translated to. I'll leave it to your imagination what that is. But so. We're not going to close out the episode just yet because we do have, other restreams of this in other languages that depend on this running actively. But looks like dazedcloud, the floor is yours. Are there any shout outs or anything? Actually, I got a better idea. What are you looking forward to as far as the remaining weeks? What's your most excited format that you want to race?
Oh man, what do I want to race or what do I get to race?
I don't know if you're at liberty to say the second, so tell me the first.
Well, I'm off for the next 2 weeks anyway. So like no, my next race is going to be the Cross Keys week, which I don't know. I mean, I love playing Cross Keys, but at the same time, racing it is such a crapshoot. But you do what it is there. Just I guess. Sorry, Top. Sorry, Mystic. Tried. Can't win them all. I tried.
Hey, no problems. I mean, your team does the reheated leftovers. You do have a commanding presence in the conference. Having fallen to 2-1 in this race, there's still a lot of opportunity to pull even further ahead of many of your opponents. So, I think you handled this one pretty well, all things considered.
Yeah. I mean, there was a little secret that I hadn't lost in any of the league matches going back to last year. Like I was like 5-0 in singles matches, and then Catobat just came out here and just smoked me. I was looking at, I had a pretty good feeling he was crushing me, just because all my plays were not working out at all. And at the moment that I saw that Mirror was over on the other side and Flute was over on the other side, I went, oh, so it was a left there, not a right. Oh, okay, I need to take the left turn and then I would have been okay.
Sometimes you take the wrong turn to Albuquerque,
Yeah, that's it. Bugs Bunny was right.
I wish there was like a doctor in your name so I could make a further pun following asking what's up, but no, I mean, yeah, it just shakes out that way sometimes. But I think you have a really good attitude about it, and that bodes well for your your composure for following races. One thing that I thought was really impressive in that specific respect is that you didn't have a reaction when you checked the pedestal. That had to have been like a really frustrating moment.
I was praying. Yeah, no, I was at that point, like, I know I'm way behind, and I pick up that flute and I'm going, okay, so that's opening up Meyer to myself. I'm going, pretty please, pretty please, pretty please. I go up there and I'm hoping, I'm like, show me boing.
As much as you hate to see it, you'll love to see it too.
If it was a ped seat, I probably was in the lead.
Oh yeah, at that point you would have been.
But yeah, no, it's gotta happen,
Well, I am very excited to see your cross keys race. I'm hoping to duck that completely myself, because that mode is a lot. I don't know if I have it in me to do a 3.5-hour race, but between you and the rest of the reheated leftovers, I think obviously that your whole team is something to look out for playoff contention, proving very early on in week 1 just how strong this team is. So I'm not going to be surprised if I see you win out the rest of your races.
That makes one of us.
Hey, I got to say it about somebody else. Can't say it about myself, right?
Yeah, fair enough. Well, I'm going to go ahead. It's late for me, and I accidentally didn't check the daylight savings time before I signed up to calm a race here in a couple hours, so I'm going to go to sleep. If that's all right.
That sounds like a plan. Thanks again, dazedcloud, for racing and for talking with us here. Folks, as mentioned, links in chat for these guys. Want to shout out Seiryu X for tracking for us today, keeping us in the up and up despite the slight technical errors we had earlier on where we couldn't see what was going on. And a big thanks to chat for keeping us up to date at that point. Also, if you're looking for a link to the past Randomizer League action here on Speed Gaming, we were replete with it today. This was just the first match of the week, first match of the day, but on this channel at 1:10 p.m., which is just barely an hour over now, we will have Faraime will give an interview if we win, which does not include Faraime, by the way, represented by Gem, versus Talking Heads, represented by Jex Refi. And then we have matches all throughout the rest of the day: 2:10, 3:40, 5:40, 6:10, 6:10, 7:10, 8:10, 8:10, 8:10. There's 3 at the same time, and 9:10 p.m. So endless racing action for you. And all you gotta do is just follow these Speed Gaming channels and the ALTTPR League, and that channel plus 2 through 4. If you want to catch everything that's going on. I've talked enough for one day. I've been Eudaimonistic, joined today on Tracking by Seiryu X. Thanks for tuning in, folks. We'll see you next time.